Thank you all for joining us for one of our first Parks virtual engagement meetings to learn more about the project plans for Crestmoor Park. We're so thankful that you're spending your evening here with us. Next slide, please. My name is Lindsay Kinke, and I'm an Associate Project Manager with Denver Parks and Recreation, focusing on design and construction of capital improvement and Elevate Denver bond projects. I've been working with a great team on this project, both with Denver Parks and Recreation and with Norris Design. Craig Coronado focuses on the Elevate Denver bond program and has been assisting us with scope and budget for this project. Lori Tabachnik is an Associate Parks Planner, and she's been assisting with outreach, and she'll be chiming in a little bit later as we go through the question and answer portion of this presentation. From Norris Design, we have Stacy Weeks, who is a principal of the firm, and Tom Ellenwood, who is a senior associate. You'll be hearing from the two of them a little bit later as they go through the project plans. Also joined with Norris is William Woodard, who's been putting together the plans and has been a great asset to this team. So I'm very thankful for the team, and they jumped at the opportunity to present these plans to you in a virtual setting. Of course, there are other members of the city that are assisting us tonight in the background, so we'd like to thank Jesus from our marketing team and other members of the planning, design, and construction team, as we couldn't have put this presentation together without you. I'd also like to thank our council members, in particular Councilwoman Sawyer, who helps us stay informed with requests from her constituents, and we're thankful that she could be here with us tonight. Also, I'd like to thank our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board member, Meredith Levy, who's really helped to get the word out about this project in the neighborhood. And I'd also like to thank our registered neighborhood associations, in particular Crestmoor Park Neighborhood Association, Crestmoor Parks Homes Association, Lowry Community Master Association, and Lowry United Neighborhoods. So we look forward to hearing from you as our lines of communication are open. Next slide, please. So with that, I'll give a brief overview of the virtual format. We are currently live, but there will be a meeting recording available through a link on the Denver Parks and Recreation website as soon as it's available to us. In addition, we will also post the project slides so you can look those over in more detail after this. At the end of the presentation, we will be doing a brief question and answer session. So for those of you that would like to ask questions, please submit those using the chat bar. You can select the message icon, and it will either pop up the chat that says type a message or ask a question. If we don't happen to get to your question during this presentation, we will be posting a frequently asked questions sheet on our website with the most pertinent project questions. In addition, if you don't get a chance to ask a question during this time or want to think of something a little bit later after this meeting, feel free to reach out to my email. It's lindsay.kinke@denvergov.org. It's listed on this slide, and it will also be listed at the end if you have a chance to write it down at that time. Reach out directly to me, and I will respond to your questions and comments. Also note that there is closed captions available for this meeting. You select the video controls on your computer, select captions and subtitles, and we do have English, Spanish, and a few other languages available for this meeting. I'd also like to note to please excuse any errors as we're working in a new virtual world. You may see some guest appearances from our pets or kids or significant others. There may be some issues with our microphones or our cameras, so please just be understanding during this time. But we're excited to be here with you tonight. Next slide, please. So with that, we'll start the presentation, and I'll give a brief overview before I send this over to Stacy Weeks with Norris Design. Crestmoor Park is located in the Hilltop neighborhood and is part of the Elevate Denver Bond Program for Parks and Recreation. This park was funded for an update to the walks in the picnic area. This is the area that we'll be focusing, or these are the areas that we will be focusing on for this meeting. As many of you are aware, the walks are in a degraded condition, and in addition, the picnic area lacks accessibility for many users. So Denver Parks and Recreation has been working with Norris Design to complete the plans in accordance with the standards and goals and input from the community, while being mindful to the budget that we have allotted by the Elevate Denver Bond Program. We did post an online survey at the end of February, beginning of March, and it was open for about 3 weeks. During that time, we received over 600 responses, which is a great response, so we're thankful for that. And we really appreciate you taking the time to provide your input to the team. So with that, I'll send it over to Stacy Weeks with Norris Design to review the survey results and talk to you about the walks.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, I'm Stacy Weeks with Norris Design, and I'm pleased to be here this evening with you virtually. As Lindsay mentioned, we kicked off the process with a community survey. As you can see on this slide, we gathered a lot of great information from you, the residents. We wanted to understand how you use the park, the trails, the picnic areas, and how you access the park, and gather general input from you. We really appreciate your interest and input along the way. We had over 600 respondents, which is a terrific response. And we really know that we have a strong group of Crestmoor Park aficionados here. So a couple of highlights. I'm going to use the cursor, so if you can follow along with me, but we wanted to highlight a few items. First of all, we have a group of residents, a large majority of residents that live within a mile of the park. So you have convenient access to Crestmoor Park. In addition to that, a majority of residents have lived in the neighborhood for over 6 years. So you have a great established group of residents that partake in activities at Crestmoor Park. You also tend to walk to the park. 70% of the respondents identified that walking was their typical means to access Crestmoor Park. And with that, that really aligns with what the top activities are at the park. The 5 top activities are walking on the pathways, using the playground, jogging on pathways, utilizing the park benches and other seating opportunities at the park, as well as recreating in the sports fields. In addition, the top park features are the paths and sidewalks. The reason why we're here tonight to talk with you about future improvements. In addition, shade is an essential element and the asset of the grand canopy of the park trees that are available at Crestmoor Park, with the seating, the playground, and the picnic area, another component of the improvements that we plan to discuss tonight. And as noted as part of the discussion with the survey, we heard that the surfacing is an area that needs attention, the picnic area is an area that needs attention, and always thinking about opportunities for shade. So key aspects of the survey really guide our process here in the assessment that we move forward with to evaluate Crestmoor Park and the opportunities for improvements at the park. One thing we just want to note too is that we were able to capture some great demographics that are representative of the survey itself, not of typical not the overall demographics of the neighborhood, but the respondents. So thank you very much for taking the time to respond. We very much appreciate it, and the data that you provided was very valuable to our analysis. With that said, in addition to the survey, we also evaluated the existing conditions of the site. I'm a frequent user of the park as I participate in youth sports there, so I get to spend some weekends in the neighborhood with you. And so as we looked at the site, I need to adjust my lens as a designer. And we went through a process where we did an assessment of the existing trails and facilities within the park area. So just to provide some context, many of you are keenly aware of the park, but Monaco bounds the park site on the eastern edge, Cedar to the south, Kearney as we go westward, and then to Southmoor on the north. So that's really the boundary of the park. Part of our assessment was looking at access to the park and the trails and thinking about the safety, visibility, and really the access to the public spaces within the park. Those public spaces include the athletic and open space fields that are used internally as well as centrally in the park, the ball fields on the southwest corner, the tennis court complex close to Locust, and then centrally the playground and the bathroom facility. In addition to that, we looked at what are the connections to the park, and starting on the southeast corner, the current access is at Monaco and Cedar with the lighted intersection. As you come around the southern edge, there's access along Locust, and there's access along Layden, along the Cedar edge on the south end of the park. And then as you move westward at Bayou, there's access to the park here where the current concrete extension moves centrally in the site. In addition to that, the Locust access to the north and the newly improved crossing at Lowry Boulevard provides access at a lighted intersection. So an important improvement to the park and access to the park. And then finally, the picnic area, which is a key area of our focus this evening. So as part of that assessment, we looked at the surface conditions, as Lindsay had mentioned, accessibility, routes, and wanted to take particular attention as we went through that process to the areas of greatest need in terms of trail improvements. And that became a priority area in the central area of the park where the trails are in the least desirable condition. Associated to that, there's also a lot of strengths in the park too. The great canopy is, as you observed in the survey, and just the overall amenities that are available within this park area. So what are the proposed improvements for Crestmoor Park? Well, we've looked at it in two phases, and I'll start with phase one. So phase one, as I mentioned, focused in on the central area of the park. And this includes the proposed trail replacement, moving from the asphalt trail that is there today to a concrete surface. So that would be a replacement of that trail, generally in similar location, to improve the surface of walkability and overall access and connectivity. So that would be part of the improvements that would be around the central area, around the tennis courts, Cedar moving north around the bathrooms, connecting to the existing concrete that extends from Bayou. Also moving eastward as we move towards the connection at Lowry Boulevard, so to create an access point and formal connection to that intersection in lighted crossing. As well as we noted the picnic area improvements that will increase the availability for space for users, but also provide accessibility that is lacking at this time. Overall, the phase one area is approximately 2,500 linear feet in trail improvements. We also, I will have Tom highlight momentarily the improvements to the picnic area in more detail, because this is a key area of focus for the overall improvements. We also have phase two improvements that we're looking at in the future, which include some rerouting of the trail and the improvements to the intersection at Locust into the current trail loop. So overall, we have a budget of approximately $595,000 for these improvements. That includes construction, design, and other contingencies. So this is an all-inclusive number. So as we move forward through the bidding process, the phase 1 extents may change as we are able to get the economies of scale when we go through the bid process. So this is our current intended improvements in terms of phase 1 and phase 2, but we will continue to evaluate opportunities as we move forward. So I want to move to the overall proposed plan. And this just highlights the improvements. I apologize about that. My mouse was sensitive. This highlights the route of the trail improvements. So currently, as I mentioned, we are looking at improving the trail from Locust at the existing parking area, generally on the southeast corner, to provide access to the tennis courts, improving the access to Layden to intersect with Cedar Avenue, as well as around the bathroom and playground area to connect with the existing concrete there today. As we move eastward, this will improve the connection from Locust in the parking area to the picnic area and provide better access and better visibility to that space. And we're realigning the walk slightly to navigate around existing trees to protect those trees as we make improvements to the walk, plus improving the crossing that's currently in the drainage depression, and then ultimately the connection to Monaco to make that connection to Lowry Boulevard. So those are some of the key connections. In the future, as I mentioned, we will be looking at phase 2 improvements that may include the rerouting of the alignment here on the northwest side of the park along Southmore to improve the access and grading considerations, and also the improvements at Locust in the future. Once again, the picnic area is a key piece to this as well, to provide better user access, make it a more dynamic space, and Tom will walk through these improvements in a moment. But I wanted to provide a reminder, please remember that the Q&A tool is available to submit questions. We'll be answering those at the end of the presentation. And then I'm going to transition to Tom Ellenwood, who's going to share updates on the picnic area.
All right. Thank you, Stacy, and thank you all for joining us tonight. As Stacy said, my name is Tom Ellenwood with Norris Design, and the plan we're looking at here is the first phase, zoomed in just a little bit to kind of understand it in more perspective. So the first thing, in the northeast corner, you can see that connection that we're proposing. That will be the connection that accesses to the new light on Monaco Parkway. This provides a connection to the existing trail and also to the connection to the improved trail that will be across from Monaco Parkway all the way down to South Kearney Street. So we're looking at this in concrete from this whole piece to allow access across the park. Additionally, we want to look at a southern access that takes you from Kearney Street all the way down to East Cedar Avenue. Based on the budget, if we can do it as well, we want to see if we can stretch the numbers and make the access across the north side of the tennis courts in this first phase. One of the reasons that we're looking at concrete as the surface of choice for here is for the longevity of that surface. Additionally, it helps with maintenance and provides a surface that's accessible for all, including people with strollers or anyone that wants to use the space, or people in wheelchairs as well. As Stacy said, we're going to look into the picnic area a little bit more in depth. So this area is the area highlighted in green just north of the parking area. So as we zoom into that on the next slide, here you can see this is the existing conditions of this picnic area as it sits right now. Mostly this is dispersed picnic areas right underneath some large over canopy trees that provides a lot of shade, and it's a great place to hang out. Currently there's existing concrete tables as well as metal tables. You can see those on the photos on both sides in the middle. There's also charcoal grills that let us use this space. So one of the things that we're looking at with this is trying to preserve those trees as we reroute the trail around this space. We looked at the alignment just to make sure that those trees would live as long as possible, so we pushed it out and farther to the east just a little bit. As we go to the next slide, here you can see a plan view of what we're looking at of this picnic area. So one of the things that we wanted to take into account is that Denver Parks has looked at the accessibility of this space, and because these picnic tables are dispersed under these trees, they're not currently accessible. Another thing is that the picnic master plan has determined that this is a Tier B picnic area, and it requires some more improvements to bring it up to this level. So some of the things we wanted to do is maintain some of those picnic tables under the existing trees that are on the north side, as well as some of the grills and things in that spot, just to keep the character of this space, as well as staying under the nice shade that's in that spot. But we also wanted to include a new space that's more accessible and is visible from the south directly from the parking lot. So you can see that on the south side in the circle area there. One of the big things with this is that we wanted to make sure that this site is close to the trail, but just slightly off, just so that people can feel as they're part of this space and be visual and feel safe, but additionally kind of have their privacy. So on the next slide, we're going to zoom into that new picnic area. Okay, here you can see in the center, there's a large circle area that has some of the more picnic tables in there. We've also pushed two together to try to make it more of a community table to make this space a bigger space for groups, and it will be a permitted space. Additionally, we have two flanking tables that are allowing space for people to go, but not necessarily be in the large space. We're also including a new bike rack at this area, two new bike racks at this area to allow people to come with their bikes and have an alternate mode of transit to this spot and have a nice place to lock up or to use it. We've pushed it off just slightly so that people can use it if they're wanting to walk the trail or do things like that. Another thing that we wanted to do was add some more grills in this area. So we've put some of those the charcoal grills in this space as well. So here you can see with the landscape area to the south how we've kind of created some of that separation, and we've also added 4 new trees. So these trees are meant to create kind of a screening area from the edge just so that you feel a little separated, but they won't screen this area completely, so it is visible from everywhere else. Another thing that's nice about this space is that there's an existing light just to the northeast of this new location. So this area will be lit so that it's safe at night. We've also created some seat walls along this area that will provide a seating area if you don't want to be at the tables themselves. Also having access from the outside so you can sit at those and enjoy the space if you want to just be off of the trail. So in the next image, we've created a render of what this space can look like. All right, so here's the rendering of this space. So you can see on the left side that large picnic area with the new tables and that community table we were referring to. Additionally, it's surrounded by those seat walls that provide access from both sides and add a nice place for people to rest if they want to be slightly away from the trail. You can see those 3 new trees across the back with an additional one in the far area there, and the 2 flanking tables on both sides of that larger space. On the right, you can see the new bike rack that will provide access for this space, and the new trail realignment in the foreground, kind of showing how this whole space ties together with the new concrete trail. Next, I'm going to give this over to Stacy, and he's going to talk about some of the potential improvements that we'll be looking at with Phase 2.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, as part of Phase 2 and part of the input that we heard through the community survey, there's an interest in improving and updating the exercise stations along the northern loop. These are highlighted with the blue asterisks on the plan. So we're evaluating that as a potential opportunity with the Phase 2 improvements. In addition to that, we heard about mileage markers being a desired element to integrate with the trail improvements to help guide the varying distances for the loops. So that will be another element that we'd like to explore programming and delivery of as part of phase 2 to create that element that would add to the overall user experience and guide the health and wellness opportunities as part of the programming for Crestmoor Park. I'd like to finish by just saying we're excited that we have the opportunity to present these proposed improvements in the future phases for Crestmoor Park. These really enhance the programmed elements available in the park and create really good usable community space, really adding to this great park. It's a treasure for the city and a great opportunity to improve the elements within the park and create a great experience for you, the residents that utilize the park on a daily basis. So we appreciate your interest in the project. We will be available for questions. Once again, please use the question and answer tool. It's at the bottom, typically at the bottom of the viewing window that you're looking at on your web browser or on your phone. And you can initiate that to prompt the message panel, which will allow you to type a message in and submit that to our team. And we will be ready to provide some responses to the questions that you may have. So I'll transition to Lindsay, who will be moderating the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. As Stacy said, now we'll be going to some questions and answers that you might have, or some questions that you might have about what was presented tonight. So we'll give it a couple minutes as we have a little bit of a lag before we might see some of those coming in. But Lori, you'll hear her chiming in the background, asking the project team some questions.
Okay, so we have a question, Lindsay, for the project team. This audience member would like to know how wide the paths will be.
Thanks, Lori. Currently, we're planning for an 8-foot wide concrete path, as we do have a lot of existing, mature, wonderful trees in this area that we're trying to preserve and be mindful to. So that's why we're looking at keeping it at 8 feet.
Thanks. Another question, can you add any more tree canopy along the new trails?
That is something that we could consider potentially as part of phase 2. We are looking to really maximize the amount of linear footage that we can do as part of phase 1 for the new walks, but it could be a potential for the future.
Thanks. So there's another question just about amenities. If you're able to add additional amenities around the bike rack, such as a bike repair station, or if tweaks like that are still being thought of?
Additional tweaks are still being considered. We could look into a potential bike repair station by the bike racks, depending on how much use this would get as a trail system for bikes. So we can consider that as a potential for the future.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. Would you mind clarifying if you are intending to replace all of the asphalt path with concrete or just a portion of it?
Sure. At this time, we are looking to replace all of the asphalt paths with concrete, but this would be done in phases as we have funding just for essentially phase 1 at this time. So what's highlighted in orange on the slide that you see next to me now is our phase 1 improvement, and we would be looking at completing that in concrete in entirety. As phase 2, as we would find funding for phase 2, then we would be doing that area in yellow, all in concrete as well.
Great, thanks. There are actually a bunch of questions about timeline, so would you mind speaking to when phase 1 would be starting and completing, and then if there is a timeline for phase 2?
Sure, at this time we're looking for about summer or fall of 2021 to start the project. We anticipate it'd probably take about 6 to 7 months to complete, and then there might be some contingencies for weather delays and things like that. And then at this time, we don't have a particular timeline for phase 2.
Great. Another amenities question, is there any consideration of adding additional benches to the trail?
Yeah, that is actually something that we could look at. And I don't remember if Stacy had touched on it, but we're looking at making some more of those benches accessible along the paths. But there could be potential as part of phase 2 to increase some benches along the edges of the paths, as we know that's an amenity that you use in the community.
Great. And this one is a coordination question with Dottie. So I'm not sure if you would know right off the top of your head, but if not, we will definitely answer it in the FAQs later. But the question is if there are any plans that you know of to coordinate with Dottie, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, to ensure that the northeast corner at Locust Street is safe in snowy weather.
Sure, we could definitely talk to them as part of this. I know we're looking at improving the ramp at that corner, so that might, I'm not sure what that looks like in snowy weather at this time, but we can definitely start those conversations with them.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. I think that's it. Oh, sorry, I missed one additional amenity question, which is just adding more trash cans along the path, and if that's a possibility.
Yes, there's actually some potential to increase the trash cans along the pathways, and we'll be identifying some locations with our operations staff that is easy for them to access and clear.
Great, thanks. Let's give it a couple more minutes to see if there are any more questions that roll in. Let's see. Oh, on the bench topic, just the general idea of perhaps doing memorial benches or something along those lines was also suggested.
Sure. I know that there are some memorial benches out there at this time, so we can definitely discuss that further as we do have a memorial bench program. So if you're interested in that, if you'd like to reach out to me directly, and I can get you in contact with the correct people for that.
Thanks. It looks like we have answered the questions in the queue. If anyone wants to get in a last question or two, we're happy to answer it. Well, I think that might be it, Lindsay.
Well, great. Thank you all so much for coming this evening. to join us and learn about the project. As project next steps, we'll be taking these concept plans and forwarding them into construction documents so that we can continue to move this into the construction phase and be able to provide these new walks and picnic area for you. But do feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is listed on this end slide with any comments or questions that you might have. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. Again, I just want to note that this will be posted on the Denver Parks and Recreation website, along with the pertinent project slides, so that you can review them and share them with the community. So once again, I'd just like to thank you, and we look forward to your feedback.